Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lips podcast. This is Brian, joined by my co host, Paul. We'd like to welcome you to a community meant for the men of the world to share their thoughts and perspectives on marriage. We can learn from each other's experiences and help each other be better husbands. This week on the pod, we want to talk to you about who's your team. Who is that person or persons that you can call in the middle of the night when things are going down? They're going to drop everything and show up.
Before we hop all the way into the episode, we just like to say thank you for those who have stopped by. If this is your first time, we welcome you. If you've been rocking with for a while, thank you for coming back. If you would like to be more involved with this episode or the content speaks to you, we would just like for you to reach out on any social media platform searching Marriage is Tougher. Or you could also go to marriagestougher.com, which is our website, which will have all of our archived episodes there. And if you'd like to be a guest, you can fill out the contact form. So let's get into this episode.
I want to start off with this just because we did just talk about it, but there are a lot of different people in my life, most of them acquaintances.
Mm-hmm.
For people like you who are a true friend, I think in my mind it was logical to say that you should be one of those people on my team that I could call in the middle of the night. We live in different states, so that's really not logical.
Right.
And just being fully transparent, I had to mourn that just because we used to live real close. And, I think I had ideals as a younger man that we would be in that space longer.
Right.
Now, what this has me thinking about is identifying who those people are, which isn't necessarily the easiest thing to do, because the only time you'll really know is if it gets tested.
True. You're not saying, hey, if I call you at 2 a.m, will you pick up? Like,
Right. I mean, you could have that conversation. It makes sense to have that conversation. But if someone commits to it, you'll never really know if they're actually committed until that moment comes.
Right.
And then, like, what's the seriousness of said situation? But that aside for the moment, my thing is I think as a people pleaser, for the most part, is how I would describe myself, would tend to be that for more people than I probably should. And then with that, I also think if I am in that type of relationship with someone, does it have to be mutual? Or is it I can be that for a couple or a person and then need to seek my people who would be the same for me? Right? I feel it makes sense for it to be mutual, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. I don't know. I'm curious, since I've talked so much already, what your thoughts are.
Man, there's so many things. I think I had to mourn that it was not you as well, but it is you at the same time, right? Because like
Right.
if it's that serious, like I know that it's nothing but the hop down 80. Like,
Yeah.
we're here.
For sure.
So it's not in the capacity of like a local thing quickly. But I
Right.
know if it goes down, I might have to wait 6 hours. But you know,
I'll
you'll
be
be
there.
there, I'll be there. So, and I think it's one of those things that take, we don't, we don't have intentional thought around. That's one of those things that we kind of take lightly. And sometimes we're not prepared. We're in that situation. We're like, who can we call? And we need someone, but who is that? Um, so it's good to think about, especially as you are walking through your adulthood and figuring out that different ages are different stages. And it's okay for some people to be that in one season, and then as you grow, maybe not so much. Or they're through and through, tried and true. They'll always be on that list. As far as do people need to be the same as far as mutual levels? I don't think so. Um, I would also say that I don't know, based on my sleep pattern, if I would be like, I am that person, but I don't know if I'm really that person. Like, if you're going to call, because in essence, if you need us, like me and my wife as a couple, you are going to call Crystal anytime after like 11. So, like, because you never know when I'm going to be asleep. I might be up, I might not be. But she is the one traditionally in that space where if we're needed, that's who people call. And then I'm up, I'm praying, I'm figuring out what's going on. She's getting the details. We're trying to figure out what we need to do and whatever crisis situation that is. Um, just because her life is more, I guess, readily available at that time.
Okay.
um, or literally the Holy Spirit will like be like, wake up. And then she'll wake up and then like someone will call like 5 minutes later. And so like we've had those things. Like that's not how my relationship works like that. Like I'm not just gonna wake up and then be like, okay, Lord, like, why are you waking me up? And then the phone will ring.
Mm.
Um, so I think just thinking about who I am to that and who I would need is really, this topic has really made me think. And I think that's good in a sense. So,
Yeah. All right. I have another perspective for you, and I imagine you may have thought of this already. But who is the person you want your wife reaching out to? Right? Like something goes down, you're incapacitated. Who's the team that you trust with your wife?
yeah, I mean, we already have, I got, like, she's got people. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I know that she would call a couple people and they would be there that I don't even have to think about right now. Like that would be it. So I'm very, I know we have that, and I think that's more just her personality. I think if you asked her that for me, like maybe they would be the same people. Now that I think about
Mm.
it might be the same people, but they wouldn't necessarily be, for lack of a better, like my people. All of them wouldn't be my people. Meaning, how we got them from the relationship, or like she knew them previously before, but now they're like down for our team. So, but I still have a relationship with them. Like if I call them, they're gonna be like, "What is happening?"
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
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 So I think she's made more of those connections than I have as we've gone through the years. And at the same time, they've been tried and trues, most of them, and they've seen her from single motherhood all the way to where we are now. So like that's kind of why you just grab those people that went with you through this thing and they're still there. So we may not speak to them every day, every week, every month,
Hmm.
but when we call, they answer.
Yeah. I think
So,
I need to have this conversation with my wife. That's why. So it was hitting me a little different.
hmm
Um, but in my mind, I think the conversation goes a little differently because I want to say I know who I am and how I know my ability to show up without
hmm
putting everything out there. So I think I would prefer someone be minimally equally yoked to be able to show up for my wife should I not be able to. So I need to put some thought into identifying that person or those people,
That's
if that makes
good.
sense.
That makes sense because I'm thinking like, so I'm just scenario, right? Like my wife is she is like the hospital advocate, right?
Okay.
Like
I like
she
that.
is when people go into like if they're, injured at any or they have to have a hospital stay, like if you want to be taken care of, you need Crystal to come because she has no problems asking questions. She's been doing this for so long that she knows the right questions to answer to ask
Mhm.
and do that. So I'm thinking when once you said that, I was thinking about that in my case. Like I know if I go down, like I don't have to worry, but like if she goes down, I have to do my best version of that. But now thinking it may be all that to say it may be different people for different reasons,
Right.
right? So like you may have to have it, and this is why we're saying you have to have a team, right? Because I know if she goes into the hospital, like I know two people right now who are actual nurses that I would call and they'd be or past nurses. So I'd be like, hey, like, can you come to the hospital? Like, this is what's going on, or like, what should I ask? What's going on? Um, and they would answer. So knowing that is different than like if something happened and like we're dealing with death or something happens with our kid, like it is different people for different things as I'm thinking about it now, which is why it's very important to have a team.
Mhm.
If it's not Crystal, but otherwise she'd take care of all the
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
things.
How important to you is it to have one of these, we'll call team members, be your neighbor?
That's a good question. I think how important is it to put a level of importance? Well, it's funny because I have two of the best when I think neighbor, like side by side living next to me neighbors,
Right.
both of them are stellar. One of them is actually longtime friends, and they actually only moved in because the house came up next to us. Like they wouldn't have even moved or bought or whatever. They're like, oh, that's next to you. Like we're in here. So
Yeah.
like that relationship is solid. And then the other relationship is amazing. That's one of the people that I would call like if Crystal was in the hospital because she was a trauma nurse for 20 years.
Right. Right.
So and both of them have came in and let our dogs out when we're not home. Like so we trust them on like that level. Like you can come in our house when we're not here.
Yes.
So I think it makes it easier. Um, but I also think in our last house we wouldn't have had that as far as physical neighbors that we trusted. So
Yeah.
I would
I
say
know
it's
that
nice
makes
to
me more
have.
comfortable, right? Like I for sure have one set of neighbors who are that, right? And it, I want to say, I have entrusted them with my children
Mm,
in a sort of emergency situation,
right.
right? A friend calls. I won't get into the details of what was happening, but he's like, it's going down. Can you get here? And it's always weird because it's like, well, let me see,
Right.
right? Because my wife wasn't home. I've got the kids, and this wasn't the type of thing that the kids could tag along to.
hmm
So um, I went next door and knocked. They answered, and I was like, "Hey, here's what's happening. Can you just sit in my place. Kids are already in bed. They're probably not going to make any noise, but if something should happen, I'm a phone call and I'm just asking you to sit, watch TV for a
Mm-hmm.
little bit, right? And they're like, of course. Um, and having that type of relationship with them where I felt comfortable leaving them with my children is very important to me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, Now, granted, I also know that had it come to it, like these people can show up strapped too,
Right.
right? Um, but yeah, man, I mean that level of connection with someone, you know, which goes back to our previous point. Like I was able to show up for someone else because someone showed up for me.
Mm. Yeah, that's good. Right. If so it's almost like the team is the chain and they don't necessarily have to be know each other. It's like, hey,
Right.
if this person calls me, can I call on this person to come help me for what I might have to leave behind in that space? Yeah, that's good. And I know I'm also spoiled because I have a grown kid that lives in the same city.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, and because we've raised him in a way that we all get along and there was no trauma that we've caused,
Right.
like that is literally like, and he's built like his mom. Like, I mean, once he's knocked, but at the same time, like if you call him, like he'll be here in moments. Um, so I realized that I might have a different dynamic as well because like you can't trust anyone more than your kids. like
Yeah.
like because they know how you move, they know. I mean, even Bella at 11, I mean, I know you could see that with Cheyenne. Like if you were like, hey, certain things, like she wouldn't even, like you wouldn't have to explain certain things because she's your kid. So
Hmm.
so now just think of that, 10 years from now, and even like, or 15 years from now, like full adult, come right in, sweep in, do whatever you need. um so him and his wife are definitely some of our people, but again, that depends on the thing that's needed, because you don't want to overburden. But if we're talking about in a lurch at 2 a.m., like if something pops off, yeah, there's just a list of people that we would call, and he'd be one or two on that list.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So
Do you practice emergency situations with the family?
now that we're talking about not as often as we should,
I got you.
but we definitely have in the past, but it's been a minute. It's a good question. Good reminder.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I need to get my wife more involved, but I did start practicing this with the children. Um, and it was funny. This is so fresh in my mind because I heard John Deloney talk about it the other day. Um, and even before I heard him mention it, I put into place keywords for the children to know, if I say this, like something's going down and there's no questions at this point, you just need to
Hmm.
follow instructions, right? Um, when we're safe and I say everything's cool now, like you could have all the questions because I'm sure there will be plenty. You may not receive all the details, but what we need to know is if daddy says this,
Hmm.
I need you to understand daddy's in control, but I very much need you to just simply follow instructions, right? And I've even gone so far to think of scenarios where, you know, they're not in my immediate vicinity,
Hmm.
right? 100 yards away, something like that. I needed those words to be simple and clear. And you've grown up as a kid, know your parents' voice very well.
Hmm.
But, that was a thought as well. Like, if I say this, you're going to distinctly know it's me, know where that came from.
Mm-hmm.
and know how to act or where to go.
Yeah, that's it. Regulators, mount up. No, that's
Oh.
I think that does play a part in that as far as preparation. Um,
Mhm,
because thinking if you're gonna have to make a call to your team, making sure that your family knows, hey, like it's going down or it's already gone, or if you get that call, right,
mhm.
like, hey, I gotta go, but this is what's expected and all that. So I think
Yes.
making sure that you have that settled. Um, so kind of related is, yeah, making sure that's settled so that they know, hey, daddy's got to go, but I'll be right back. I'll be back as soon as possible. But
Mhm.
and I may have to stop doing whatever we're doing, but I'll let you know what happens. Once I get back. So I think that's a good distinct thing. If both of you and Katie aren't there, right? Like,
Right.
hey, this is it. Obviously, it's a little different if Katie's there. You're like, hey, kids, I'll be back. Daddy's got to make a run. But like, if it involves both of you being there to, you know, save a marriage or someone's in the hospital and or something like that, it's it's pretty good to have preparation for that so it doesn't seem as foreign.
Right. And what I thought I heard you saying, or at least starting to say, which I just want to maybe dive a little bit deeper into it, that preparation piece, the importance of discussing, like whoever your people are, your team, discussing how things should operate should something go down. Right. Especially if like I need to leave my kids with you or I need to
Mm-hmm.
leave my wife with you,
Mm-hmm.
um, whatever the case may be. But I think, it goes back to setting expectations, right? And are you agreeable to these expectations? Is this something that you think you can handle? It's like being on a plane, right? Like you're in the emergency row.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You may have longer leg room, and should this go down, are you ready to assist?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, this is not a put your headphones back in and fall asleep while they're talking about the emergency procedures. We
right,
need to
right.
have that conversation and know what that is. So I guess maybe you do have to. Maybe I circle back around. Maybe you do have to have the conversation with those people.
Yeah.
But sometimes, for me, it feels like it's just known by at this point in our lives by experience. Meaning either we've already shown up
Hmm.
or our relationship is such that we've had that, oh, you're calling, so what's going on, like what's
Right,
happening, like,
right.
and it could be based on now if you're a caller and all you do is call people, that might be a little different, but our unit's more, we're texting everything,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
maybe a FaceTime, like I haven't seen your face, but if it's like a voice call, no. No, it's like, oh, I should, this person doesn't call me. Like, I've left meetings where I'd be like, hey, like, I'll be right back. And like, I gotta say, like, if someone's called because we don't really call each other like that.
I got you.
So, um, and that might not be how your team moves, but that's generally the case.
Yeah.
So,
I think for me, I am more of a caller.
hmm,
I guess I'm a little more old school. Um, and it's funny because like even at work, if someone is messaging me through Teams or text message or whatever, I find it easier to just have the phone conversation, right?
yeah.
But yeah, so I guess I'm more of a caller. So I think yeah, that's I think part of the prep too is like knowing how to contact each person.
Hmm.
I like that. Hmm. I got some things to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's have that conversation with your spouse. Who are these people?
Hmm.
Who is it for us as a unit? Who's it for you? If I'm incapacitated, who's it for me, if you're capacitated, are you comfortable with those people?
Hmm.
Especially if it involves like children or animals or anything coming into the house, anything of those. Just be on the same page there. That gives an easy baseline so you don't have to worry about that when that happens. Then, if you feel like you need to have that conversation, like, hey, I value you as a person in my life. I see you as a person. Like, if it goes down, I feel like I can reach out to you. Is that too heavy for you?
Yeah, yeah,
No love lost. Like, we're still cool, blah, blah, blah. But this is, you're kind of a part of our emergency plan, if you will.
yeah, yeah.
And then having those conversations and seeing where that lies. And then, sorry, in that conversation, what's the best way to get in contact with you when it's going down? Do I need to text first and then give a call right after that text?
Right.
Do I need to call and then give a text? Like, what's the thing? Do I need to FaceTime? Do you need, what do you need for that? So, um, yeah, I think those are the three things that can help you find your team,
Yeah.
because
Fi-
we all need
Final
one.
thought. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Final thought for me, as I was thinking about who these people could be in my life, there was someone who came up in my mind sort of after the fact. And I was like, oh, yeah, they're like completely capable and willing, but they weren't initially who I thought of.
Mm,
And so I'm thinking, like, what's the reason for that?
mm.
And if I develop that reason, does that inherently leave them off the list, even though they are capable and willing?
And I think that's a good point. It also comes back, like you said before, is you don't really know until it's 2:30 a.m. and you need to call people.
Yeah.
So I think as long as you have a couple people, you can expand if you want, or you can think about certain situations like, who is my hospital resource? Who's my child resource? You know,
Hmm.
who's my wife resource? Like those type of things. And if they're one and the same, great. If not, your team, you just realize you need a fuller team.
Yeah.
So
Squad goals.
that's that's it. Yeah. So as we wrap up, we just want to say thanks for listening through a full episode with us. If you would like to connect, or if you have any comments about your team, your squad, what ways to gather information or put it together, please reach out. Searching Marriage is Tougher on any social media platform. Hit us up on the DMs, or you can just go right to marriagestougher.com and hit that contact form and leave a message there. So we appreciate you, and we will chat with y'all next time.
Peace.